Good evening, and thank you for joining me again. My name is Brady. This is Be All In Sports. I told you I was going to be back with my breakdown of the UFC China this weekend. Everything is going to be stepped up because this is a super early start time this weekend. We've got it starting at about 1 o'clock in the morning, our time. So, here we go. We're gonna break right into this. Again, I've broken this down as much as I can. To this point, the study goes on and picks obviously when weigh-ins go on and we find out a little bit more information. There's always that little bit of picks may change every once in a while, but for the most part, feel pretty confident in what we've got going on right now. Uh, I'm going to jump right in. And then after this is over, I do have some bets already put in, which usually I do not do that. So I've gone ahead and put some bets in. I don't necessarily suggest that you take all of these just yet. Some of these, the lines may change. So I'll always keep it out there that I usually don't throw in my bets until later on in the week. But for the purposes of just getting them out there for you guys and let you see where I'm kind of going, I thought I'd go ahead and put a few in and let you know what I'm doing. But I'm going to break right in. Forgive me right now for some of these name pronunciations. It is what it is. I'll do my best on this, but some of them are a little bit tough. But in this first match, we have Mahashate versus Nicholas Mota. Mahashate is 10-3. Mota is 14-5. Both are coming off their last fight was a win. In this fight, both fighters are not bad. They're both tough, not extremely durable on either side. Both of them have been finished. But if I'm going to go a quick pick on this, here's the one thing that obviously Mota is going to be a little bit older, but the experience isn't necessarily shining through there. So Mahashate is just as experienced in that realm. And I have seen him look pretty impressive. And the one thing that I'm noticing about him that I do like is he is going to have that size advantage. And I know that he is a hittable fighter. I know that he does take some damage, but I think the durability is going to be there in a fight like this, at least to keep it in the distance. He's got a little bit of a reach advantage there. And I just think that he's going to be the overall bigger fighter in this, and I think he's going to have a little bit of advantage on his feet because that's where I think this match is predominantly going to stay out. I don't think this one's really going to go to the ground, and I look for him to eventually. I would say I'm going to call Mahashate getting a knockout in this one. It's just the way I'm kind of looking at it, but yeah, I do see him getting a finish in this one. So we'll go on and piece up this next fight. We have Zhao Long versus Kwang Lee. I do like Kwang Lee. The last matchup that he had was his debut in the UFC against Chris Gutierrez. He looked pretty good in that matchup. He's got an 8-1 record. He is going up against Zhao Long, who is a pressure fighter. He'll get you up against the cage, more of a grappling specialist. And he does have a wealth of experience in the fighting game, obviously 26-8 record. He is coming off a loss, as is Kwang Lee to Chris Gutierrez. The one thing that I will say about this is I think that Long is going to be the bigger fighter in this, obviously. And I think that he's going to carry some – I think that weight and size advantage is going to carry even heavier in this one due to the fact that he is a pressure grappler. He'll strike to get into the grappling, and he'll kind of weigh on you, hold you against the cage, which in this particular instance, you're going up against a guy like Kwang Lee, who is a knockout specialist, and a lot of times if they don't get the knockout, they're usually getting controlled. And in this case, I just feel that's going to be the case. I feel like Long is going to be able to control Lee. And I don't see him being able to get off the striking advantage that he would have if this was a at-range type battle, because Long is going to try and keep it in distance. He's going to try and pressure him. He's going to try and wear down on his arms. So, again, I know a lot of people like the Kwong Lee side of it just because he's an underdog. He's been in the UFC. He's already fought here, but I just don't see it. I think Long is going to win this one. I think this is going to go long, so I'm going to say decision just due to the fact that Lee's main method of winning is knockouts, but I don't think he's going to be able to get a knockout against Long in this one. So I am going to go Long in this one as my pick. I like this matchup here. If you're a Kavanaugh fan, Lone Air Kavanaugh versus Jose Ochoa, and I'm obviously not saying that name right, but Kavanaugh, I saw him on the Contender Series, and I actually picked against him. The matchup that he had in that particular instance, I felt very strongly that the other fighter had all the skills to beat him, but it turned out a little bit different. He ended up getting the knockout in that one, and it was very, very impressive the way he did it. He stays in the pocket. He's good at grappling. He's good at boxing. He's fast. He's durable. Jose Ochoa, on the other hand, from what I'm seeing on him in tape alone, he's a little bit wild. He throws. He kind of wings some stuff. He comes in, and I notice when he does get a little bit wild, he'll leave that chin up. And I think it leaves him open for a counter shot. And I think Kavanaugh is the perfect person to get that counter shot on him. So, again, I am going to side with Kavanaugh in this matchup just due to the fact I think he's going to be the faster, the more durable striker in this one. And I think this one's going to stay on the feet. And I don't think Ochoa is going to be able to, even though he does come from a good camp, Kavanaugh does as well, and I just think he's going to have all the advantages. I think he's got the experience levels. He's definitely fought the higher level competition throughout his career so far, so I think he's going to be able to get this one done. So Kavanaugh is going to be my pick in this one against Ochoa. Next up, this is a pretty interesting fight. I've kind of gone back and forth on this one a little bit. Forgive me again on the pronunciation. I think it's Namyargol Tumindimbril versus Carlos Hernandez. Tumindimbril, record 2-0 in the UFC. He was on the road to the UFC matchups. He did pretty well. He's a pressure fighter again, and he's kind of got that grit that I like in fighters. Carlos Hernandez does too. But in this matchup in particular, I think Carlos Hernandez is going to have a slight size advantage, but I don't know. There's just something that I keep going back to Tumindimbril, and I like his grit. I like his toughness. I like his tenacity when he's in there, and I think he's going to be a little bit more aggressive. Even though Carlos Hernandez is a very solid, good, straightforward boxer, he's got good skills on the feet. He scrambles well. He gets out of, he doesn't lay on the ground and just accept takedowns. But I don't think this fight's necessarily going to be on the ground. I think Tumindimbril, he mixes it up pretty well. He's got a good stand-up game. He moves in and out of the pocket pretty well, and I think that he's going to be able to kind of control this fight a little bit more. And I think he's just going to have the more durable side of this one. So I am going to kind of go out on a limb on this one. Tumindimbril is going to be my pick against Carlos Hernandez, even though Hernandez does weigh heavy with that experience level in the UFC, and he's fought a pretty good list of names in the UFC. So that fight again can go back and forth on that one. This next one, if I can get this to pop open here, we've got Shi Ming versus Feng Zhaokan. One thing that I noticed on the differences in this fight in particular is the size. And I don't know why that's not opening at all. Zhaokan, I feel is going to be the bigger fighter in this one. She's going to have a size advantage here. And I think definitely fought the higher level of competition. Again, this is one of those things that I almost feel like it's a setup fight for the UFC to kind of gain popularity. Obviously, both of these women are from China, but Zhao Khan is going to have the advantages in size here. I think she's going to have the grappling advantage, the striking advantage. pretty much everywhere this fight goes, I think Fang is going to be the one to get this done. So I'll move right on this. Kiru Singh Sahoto versus Dong Shun Choi. This one, I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Cejudo is a very, very long, rangy type fighter. He uses his kicks well, keeps you at range, keeps you at bay until he tries to get in and use like Muay Thai knees. He likes to get in close, kind of clinch you and see if he can get some knees off. Dong Hung Choi, on the other hand, is a very strong fight. I mean, he's a very durable fighter. I've seen it. He got cracked on his last fight when he was at the road to the UFC. And in that particular fight, the durability that I saw, I'm not actually sure that he won that fight, to be quite honest with you. I go back and forth when I watch it. I'm not sure that he actually won that fight, but I like the durability. I like the strength. I think he's going to be the more durable fighter. And I think that I don't think he's going to allow it to stay at range. So that's why with him in particular, I am going to side with Choi in this one for the simple fact that Cejudo likes to keep it at range. He likes to knock you away with like teep kicks, front stomach kicks, everything to kind of keep you at range. But I think that eventually Choi is going to get inside and he's going to get some like dirty boxing going. He's going to get him to the ground possibly. And I think overall he's going to end up winning this one by decision. So my pick in this one is going to be Choi. I'm siding with Choi. All right. These names, yeah. Let me see. Berjang Yalesi versus Suyong Yu. Okay. I've been seeing a lot of people picking Yalesi, and I get it. He's going to be the little bit bigger fighter in this one in particular. He's going to have a little bit of a size advantage, I do believe. But from what I'm seeing, he can be controlled on the ground from what I'm seeing. So and from the tape that I'm watching on you, and again, I'm not I haven't seen as much tape on some of these guys just because I haven't been able to find a lot of it. But from what I'm seeing, Yu seems to have a slight advantage on the ground. And I think that he's going to be able to have more control when he is on the ground. So for that reason, I know this is a close one. This is not going to be one of the fights that I would bet money on. If I do bet money on any of these road to UFC fights, because obviously I'm not as familiar with these guys as I am some of the other names in the UFC. So I'm kind of doing my tape study right along the cuff, and I'm trying to get these out as quick as I can. So with some of these fights, I'm going to pick the over in a lot of them because I just see that these are not a lot of finishers here. So when I'm looking at some of these fights, if I see that both of these fighters are not having a lot of finishes on their record, I'm going to put 2 and 2 together, and I am going to go with it in this one, and I'm going to pick a lot of over 2.5s in this. So just straight up, that's where I'm going to go with a lot of those fights if I do even bet them at all. But in this particular fight, I am going to pick Suyong Yu. Okay, this next one, I did get to do a little bit more tape study with these two, and this is one of my more confident picks of the whole fight. Ozzy Diaz, he fought on the Contender Series. He did lose on the Contender Series. I cannot, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't remember who he fought. But Zhang Mingyang, this guy, when I saw him the last time that he fought, coming off his win, I wish I could remember some of these names. But one thing I noticed about him is he seems to really enjoy the fight. And I always like to see that when I'm making a pick. I always like to see a guy that looks like he can take a punch, getting punched in the face, and just kind of shake it off and go right back at it, get right back in the game, dog out. I really, really enjoy watching those fighters. I tend to in a matchup like this where you've got someone who obviously there's questionable things going on with their stint. They did lose. He did lose to Joe Pyfer. So again, you can't. Joe Pyfer is one of those way up, type fighters in the UFC already. So no fault there. And he has come off his last two. He's had some KO wins, but on the other side, that win against Ribeiro, when you're KOing somebody like him, that was a fight that could have gone either way. It was a matter of who's got a little bit more toughness, who's got the dog in him a little bit more. And Ming Yang proved he can take a punch. He can come right back at you. He stays in your face. He is willing to just completely throw down with you. So for that reason, I am going to side with Zhang Ming Yang in this one. I don't think Diaz is going to have the chops anywhere this fight goes. And I think the tenacity and aggressiveness of Ming Yang is going to be what is ultimately going to put this one over the top. But I am going to take Ming Yang in this one. All right, this next fight, I like this fight. If you're a Carlos Ulberg fan, I am going to side Ulberg right away. I'm going to tell you that right now. I like Ozdemir, but to me, when he comes forward and he's kind of winging punches, he leaves himself open for counters. And I think Carlos Ulberg is the perfect person to take advantage of those counter shots. He's a very, very slick counter puncher, very, very slick kickboxer. He obviously trains with Adesanya. He comes from the city kickboxing gym. Ozdemir is a very, very tough fighter, and the only way that I see this going in his favor is if he can outdog him and in the later rounds end up taking over and possibly getting a knockout, possibly just wearing on him as the fight goes on, maybe getting some control control time up against the cage. But I ultimately think that the footwork of Ulberg is going to be too much for him. I think he's going to end up falling prey basically to those counter shots when he comes in. I think he's going to get desperate in some measures, and I think at some point Ulberg is going to catch him, and I think he's going to knock him out in this one. So I will take Carlos Ulberg in this one. I'm going to take him by knockout. I got a cold a little bit, so forgive me. The next fight, Wang Kong versus Gabriela Fernandez. I like both of these fighters a lot. Fernandez, she's a good stand-up fighter, but when I'm looking at Wang Kong, she's the one that came in with her face all painted up like the Joker. Kind of didn't know what to think, had the accolades, but wasn't necessarily sure what she was going to show. She did show out, finished it very quickly. Her fights, she seems to be the real deal. We'll see in this one. She's up against a little bit tougher of competition in Fernandez. Fernandez is pretty good everywhere. She has that bouncing in and out style, more of that, kickboxing range, stays at range, is good at keeping it at distance. But I think Wang Kong obviously is very good at closing the distance. I think she's going to end up walking her down, have a little bit more pressure. And I think ultimately she's going to end up landing those straights that are going to be very damaging to Fernandez. It's happened in some of her other matches, so I kind of think it's going to happen in this one again. So my pick is going to be Wang Kong to win by, I'll take it, I'll say by decision, just because of the footwork of Fernandez. I think it'll be there enough to keep her out of the danger of getting knocked out. So for that one, I'll go decision. Next up, we have Song Kenan versus Muslim Salikov. This is one of those fights that I guess it could go either way, but when I first looked at it, I immediately could make a pick, and I was going immediately with Kenan Song. I just think he's the tougher fighter. I think he's more durable. When you start getting up into your 40s and you're still fighting, Salikov, yes, he is good. He's been good for years, but I kind of think it's past his time. I think he's going to get cracked in this one. Kenan hasn't shown that he can't take a punch. I don't think Salikov is going to be able to get this one to the ground, even though Kenan doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. I don't think Salikov is going to necessarily be the guy that gets it to the ground. And I think ultimately Kanon's going to land that big shot. He's going to hurt him, and I think he's going to end up finishing him with ground and pound in this one. So for that fact, I am going to take Kanon's song in this one. All right, we have a women's strawweight bout. Yan Xiaonan versus Tabitha Ricci. Tabitha Ricci, absolutely gorgeous. But I have to side against her in this one. Yan Xiaonan, I think she's going to have the size advantage. She's going to have the striking advantage in my eyes. I think she's a better striker. And wrestling-wise, I actually think that she is the better wrestler. I think she's pretty much better everywhere this fight goes. I don't see the advantages that Ricci's going to have in this one. I think even if you do try and get it to the ground, even if you do successfully get it to the ground, I think Yan is going to end up being able to get it back to the feet. And ultimately, I think she's going to end up taking over. But I do think it's going long. Both these women are very tough. I don't see either of them getting a finish either way it goes, but I'm going to side with Yan to win this one by decision. All right, that brings us to the main event of the evening. We have Petr Yan taking on Deiveson Figueiredo. 17-5 Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo, 24-3-1. Man, Yan seems to have the height advantage. I'm not really sure. We'll see when they face off if that's actually true. I've seen sometimes they'll put it in there, and once they get to that face-off, it doesn't necessarily look like it's holding up too well. But I think he's going to have that size advantage. I know he's definitely going to have a speed advantage in this one. He's definitely the speedier fighter. He's great at that jab, great at defending takedowns. Obviously, Figueiredo, former champion, has the takedown. He does have good takedowns, excellent jiu-jitsu on the ground. I just think that he's a little bit slower in the striking department, and I think that overall, Yan is going to be the quicker fighter. He's going to be the younger fighter, and I'm pretty confident, people, that this is going to be a Petr Yan victory in this one. He has had quite the up and down here lately, but if you look at the competition that he has faced, he's fighting some of the best. He's fighting some of the best in the division, and at this point, it's hard to go against. I mean, look at some of the losses. The one, Aljamain Sterling, former champion, Sean O'Malley, former champion, and then Valishvili, champion now, and his last fight, Yadong Song. So, even though Figueiredo is on a pretty good win streak himself, I just don't put his wins to the same level as even Jan's losses, because I don't necessarily think that he's necessarily lost all of those fights. I think that some of those could go either way. But when you're beating Rob Font, he's kind of proven that he's kind of washed up in that division. Cody Garbrandt, we definitely know that he's washed up in that division. And then that last fight, Marlon Vera, yes, I'll give you that one. But he also just got pounded by Sean O'Malley for 5 rounds. So I don't know how much stock I'm putting in that yet. So I am definitely siding with Petr Yan in this one, 100%. I've got a bet in on him with a parlay. I'll show you that in just a few minutes. And I will, as soon as the lines drop, I will have more bets on Yan. I feel pretty confident that he's going to get this one done. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I do feel pretty confident Yan for the victory in that one, in that main event. But we will go on to the betting side of things. All right. Okay, to the part we have all been waiting for. Here are some early bets that I've put in for the UFC China card this weekend. First off, I feel pretty confident, just like I just said, for Yan to get that victory. So I'm going to take him with money line, and I'm going to move him with Carlos Ulberg, who all the reasons that I said before, I feel pretty confident that both of these guys get it done. This is a minus 127 on DraftKings. This is going to be what I'm going to go with first. Just for the obvious reasons, I think both these guys get it done. I think it's a quick and easy parlay. Obviously, we're going to have to wait till later in the fight, but I feel pretty confident that both of these hit. Next up, this is one that, a lot of people would probably side against this one, but I just can't get around it. I may be completely off with this one, but Kenan Song money line plus 145 on DraftKings. I think he's the more durable fighter. I think he's the younger fighter. I think he's going to have the speed advantage. I think he's going to have the strength advantage. I'm not impressed with a guy that's 40 years old who, to me, I think you're losing a step. I think you've had some cancellations on your some fights here recently, and you haven't looked good in the fights that you have had. So I am going to side with Kenan Song in this one. Money line 1 plus 145. I'll put a unit on that one as well. Then I'm going to side with Kavanaugh money line. I'm not even going to pronounce that first name because I heard it pronounced several different ways, and I don't know which is right. So we're going to go Kavanaugh with the money line there. We are going to go Xiaonan Yan money line for a two-piece parlay there, minus 116 on DraftKings. Again, I'm not hitting plus odds on these things. I'm going a little bit different, and some of my other stuff is going to be in me just picking some single bets this weekend. I feel pretty confident in a couple single bets that I've got, so we're just going to throw some parlays together. And again, if you'll notice, I have not loaded up on any one fighter in this one. I'm trying to lay off because obviously I put Denise in 4 different parlays last weekend. It kind of blew up in my face. So trying to stay away from that. Hopefully we get lucky and all of my picks hit, but you never know. And then we have the last two-piece parlay that I put in already. Xiao Kan Feng money line and Zhang Mingyang money line, minus 133 on DraftKings. Again, both these fighters, they are the bigger fighter. Ming Yang, I just think he's the more aggressive. I think he likes the fight. And Feng, obviously the more experienced, the bigger fighter in this one. With women's fights, I do tend to lean towards the bigger fighter. Just seems to be the way that it works out a lot of times. So it's just something I've noticed over time. And if I see somebody that has a very, very big advantage in size in a women's fight, it does tend to sway my way. Just with the last weekend, how I picked Eduardo Mora to win that fight, it was the same thing. The size advantage was what weighed the heaviest in my mind. So obviously it worked out that way. But this is where I'm going with my picks and my predictions for this weekend's card. Hope this helped you out a little bit. I know it wasn't perfect. Sorry about, I feel like I'm getting a cold a little bit, so I apologize for that. A little bit tired tonight, so not usually my full explanatory self on some of these, but I hope this helped out a little bit. I'll be back on, I'm sure, to give you some more bets. I do have some basketball stuff that I'm going to be posting for the NBA in-season tournament tomorrow. So look for that. Probably in the morning we'll have that out, but wanted to get this out. I hope you enjoyed these picks. Hope they helped. Hopefully we have a better weekend than we did last weekend. Again, I've got some single bets. I'll try and get those out to you before the fights. I'm sure we'll go back over some of these as we get closer to fight day. But for now, my name is Brady. This is Be All In Sports. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great night. We'll see you again soon. Peace out, people.